variables are going to be important and you're going to be using them a lot as you create programs throughout this course. A variable is generally used to keep track of information when it comes to programming in JavaScript. Let's take a look at a popular game on the web called BrowserQuest. BrowserQuest is a popular game created on the web using just JavaScript. If you ever get the chance, check it out, it's pretty cool. But enough about that, let's get to the point. As we play the game, we can see that things such as our health, score, lives, and damage. Our health, for example, is a variable that changes depending on what happens in the game. Our score, or our lives, is another example of a variable. The main point I'm trying to make is that a variable is something that represents a certain value in our game and is always constantly changing. Here is an example of the basic syntax we use for creating a variable in JavaScript. Here we can see that our first keyword, called var, is short for variable. The next word is going to be the name of your variable, which can be whatever you like. Next, we have an equal sign and a number. What this statement is saying is variable lives equals 3. When we are creating a variable and giving it a name, we are assigning a value to that variable. Now, let's do a more hands-on approach, and let's create another example of a variable we might use in a program. Let's use a variable and add it to our document.write command. So I'm going to write a basic command here, which is going to be our document.write command, and I'm going to add a string in this command. So let's type in the following. So now that we have our document.write command here, let's add a variable to this program, and let's do a more hands-on approach. So I'm going to type in var, and the name of my variable is going to be example. And inside the brackets in the quotation marks of example, we're going to give it the value of I am a variable. What this basically says is that example equals I am a variable. So if we ever insert the keyword example, then the text I am a variable will be outputted to the file. Basically, our variable is just representing something. And in this case, example is representing the string that we declared earlier. So if we save this and then run our program, we can see that the value of example will be outputted to the document with our document.write command. The cool thing about variables is that we can change them as much as we like in our programs. Let's go back and change our variable to do something else. Since we already declared our variable example, we can omit the var part as variable and just type example equals whatever we like it to be. Now, because JavaScript reads our commands from top to bottom, we need to make sure that if we are going to change a variable, we need to insert it after our document.write command here. So we're going to grab this piece of code here, copy it, then after the document.write command, we're going to paste it. So what we're doing here is we're declaring our example variable as a certain string, writing it to the document, then after that gets written, we're giving it a different value and then writing that new value to the document. The part up here is going to run first, and then the part on the bottom is going to run right after it. So let's save this and see what happens when we run the program. There we go. We can see that our variable changes throughout our program and has two different values that are outputted to the document. This is the power of variables, and you will learn why this is important as you work more with JavaScript. In the next video, we're going to be talking more about syntax and naming your variables because there's a few rules that we need to follow. So I hope you are enjoying the course thus far. And if I were you in your shoes, I'd imagine that you want to move on and do more programming. But before we can do that, let's talk a little bit more about variables because there are some rules as JavaScript developers and programmers we must follow. For instance, you can't go around naming your variables whatever you like. There are some keywords that we cannot use. For example, var is one of those keywords. We can't name a variable var. This is one example, however, there are many more we can't use. You should check out the external links in this lecture as I've included a reference to a list of all the different keywords that would give you a syntax error if you try to use them as a variable name. If you ever get a syntax error when you are creating a variable and can't figure out what is the problem, then this might be a likely cause. The next thing worth mentioning is that a variable is not allowed to start with a number, but they can end with a number. All variables must start with a letter. Here is an example of what I mean. One time is an example of a wrong variable, while time1 is a correct name for a variable. Variables can also only contain the following characters: letters, numbers, the $ value, and underscores. Here are some more examples of correct variables and incorrect variables. Take a second to study the sheet and try to find out the reason why each one is correct and why the incorrect variables are wrong. To sum this lesson up, I want to mention that it is important that you make your variable names clear, informative, and easy to understand. For example, player1 is a better choice for a variable instead of p1. Player1 clearly tells us what our variable is about. P1 kind of could lead to confusing if somebody else was to use your code, or if it's been a long time since you've used this piece of code and you just forgot what P1 was referencing to. Well, that's it for naming variables. Move on with the course. So now that you have a good understanding of what variables are, let's talk a little bit about strings and numbers. When you're entering information into a variable, we are adding a value to that variable. But there are two types of values we can add to a variable. These are strings and numbers. Let's go over numbers first. Numbers are used for simple math equations and calculations. We will be working with numbers a lot in this course. But for now, let's focus on strings. Strings are used for storing text and words. Here is an example of a string being used in a command. The string in this example is that part of the text that is in the quotations, like I have highlighted here. Here are some more examples of strings commonly used in JavaScript. Strings can either be single quoted or double quoted. So now that you know what numbers and strings are, we can now move on further in the course. We will be working with strings and numbers a lot, so it's good to have a solid foundation and understanding of how they work in JavaScript. You've learned quite a few commands so far in this course, so by now you should be slowly getting used to using them. In today's lesson, you are going to learn how to capture a user's input by using the prompt command. Let's look at a live example of a simple program that might use this command. We can start this command off by typing the following. We are then going to be adding a string to our prompt command as follows. Let's now run the program and see what happens when you run it in our web browser. An alert box will pop up and allow our visitor to type in their age, but where did that number go? Well, we can assign a variable to our prompt command and then output that variable to our page or use it in another command. Let's go through this step by step. First off, I'm going to give a variable to our prompt command and give it the name visitor age so I know what it will be referring to. Next up, I'm going to write a document.write command, and I'm going to insert our visitor name variable in our command. So basically what's going on here is we're taking whatever the user inputs into the variable visitor age and outputting it to the document. Let's save this file and see if our program is going to work correctly as we intended it to. There we go. We can see that our visitor's age is being outputted to the page successfully. Pretty cool, huh? In the next lesson, you will learn how to combine strings together. Now that you know how to collect information from a visitor using the prompt command, we we can start to build some programs that have a little bit of interactivity involved in them. In today's lesson, you're going to be learning how to combine strings together to create some messages from our visitor's input. Using the example from our last program, we are going to take our visitor's age and add that input to another message. So let's start by creating a variable for the prompt command. I'm also going to add a variable for the user's name as well. So we're going to have two variables in this program, one for our visitor's age and one for their name. So we're going to output this information to the document by using the document.write command. So just follow along with me as I type this out. And what I'm basically doing here is I'm creating a string and I'm adding a plus sign. And with this plus sign, I'm going to type out our two variables here. I'm going to first enter the visitor's name. And what this is going to do is that visitor name variable is going to grab the string and insert it into the string we're already typing here. Notice that I add a plus sign before and after the variable because I'm going to be adding a more string. And then after this part of the string, we're going to insert our other variable. So again, we add the plus sign and then we just type out our variable. This is the basic syntax for adding your strings together in JavaScript. We have our hello part plus visitor name, the rest of our string, and then our visitor's age. Pretty simple. We're going to save this and see if our program is running correctly. Alright, so I'm going to type in my age here. And I'm going to type a name. Alright, we can see that everything's working perfectly as we planned. You notice that there's not spaces in our strings, and this is because JavaScript does not add spaces automatically, so we have to go into our strings here and just add a little space here. And once we preview the program again, we can see that the spaces will be added to our strings. So I'm going to go through here and enter my age, of course, and my name again. And we can see that the spaces are added just like we want. So this looks a little bit better. Keep in mind that when we add and combine strings together in JavaScript, it is called concatenation. This is a fancy word for combining strings together. Alright, so that's pretty much the basics of combining strings in JavaScript. Try to do this in some of your programs to get some practice, and we will move on to the next lesson where we will talk further about working with strings. There are all types of commands, messages, and properties listed on this page that can help you with your coding. Anytime you have a problem or just want to learn something new, you can come here and reference all the helpful information for free. For example, let's use the MDN to learn a new command we can use to work with our new strings. Let's take a look at the link command. On this page, we can see all the information about this command as well as an example we can use to try it out with. Let's take the example and add it to our JavaScript program just for this lesson. Here we are creating a variable called hotText, and we are giving it the value of MDN. Then we are creating another variable called URL, and the value is the link to the MDN website. With our console.log command, we are writing to the console the following: our string plus our value from hotText, then using the link command to make our URL variable a hyperlink, that if we click on it, it will take us directly to the web page. This might be a little bit complicated, especially when you're using commands you have never seen before, but don't worry, practice will make you better. Let's run the program and see what happens. We can see that we have our text on our page, and then we have a link we can click here that takes us to the Mozilla Developer Network. Pretty cool, eh? Try using the link command with other commands you have learned so far to create a program of your choice. In the next lesson, you are going to use the information you have learned so far to create a web page that welcomes visitors to a web page and greets them. Alright everybody, so I hope you're ready to do some programming, because in this lecture, what I need you guys to do is I need you guys to build me a program. So what we're going to do is pretend as if I'm a client and you're working for me, and I need a program and I need you to have the following features. So we're going to go over this step by step, and like usual, you can follow along. I want you guys to try and do it on your own, and if you have any problems, you can watch me in the next video where I will come up with my own solution to the program. Doesn't necessarily mean that yours will be the same, but I will come up with my way of how I would do it. Alright, so let's look at the program, and let's look at what you need to include in your program in order to pass the challenge. So first of all, download the HTML and JavaScript files for this challenge. Second, your program needs to welcome the user to the web page via an alert box. Then you need to ask the user for their name. And then you need to ask the user for their favorite color. Then you're going to combine the user's name and the user's favorite color into a string that goes as follows, and write that string to the document. Hello, user. Your favorite color is user's favorite color. Finally, output a program complete string to the console to let us know that your script has run successfully without any errors. If you think you can handle this on your own, try and give it a go. If you have any problems, don't worry. I'll be here in the next video to show you the complete solution to the variable and strings challenge. Good luck, guys. I hope everybody is having a great day. In this lesson, we're going to show you guys the solution to the variable and strings challenge that I presented to you in the last lecture. Alright, so let's get started. So the first thing we need to do is we need to welcome our user to the page with an alert box. So the easiest way to do this would be using the alert command and typing in a string such as hello or welcome to our website. You can use whatever you want here. We then need to ask our user for a name. So I'm going to create a variable and call it visitor name, and then I'm going to prompt the user and ask them, what is your name? Make sure I add my quotes here. Alright, so we got that captured. We are then going to prompt the user and ask them for their favorite color and save it in the variable called visitor's color, or favorite color here in this case. So the next thing we need to do is we need to combine the user's name and favorite color together into a string that goes as follows. Okay, so this part, we're going to have to combine our strings together, remember? And we're going to have to start it off by writing a document.write command, because we got to output it to the page. What we're going to do is we're going to take the string that we required, and we're going to enter it in here, and then instead of the spots for the user's name and the user's favorite color, we're going to put the variables that we created earlier that's going to store that information and then output it to the page. So here we're going to put the visitor's name. Then we're going to finish typing out our string here, and then we're going to insert the favorite color as well. Remember that when you make your strings that you add a space before your variable and after your variable so that everything's not too squished together. Okay, so our program is looking pretty good. We're almost done. Next up we need to do is we need to output a program complete message to the console. So we can simply do this by doing console.log and then typing something along the lines of program complete or anything like that would be acceptable in this manner. Okay, so we're going to save our program and hopefully everything runs pretty good. Let's check it out and see what happens. Okay, so we're welcomed. I'm going to enter my name here, and then I'm going to enter my favorite color in. We can see, oh, there we go. Hello, Robin, your favorite color is green. So that part's working pretty good. But we got to check the console.log, remember? And we can see that our program complete. So we can see that everything in the program ran successfully, and that's a challenge for you guys. So if you guys had trouble with that, that's fine. Just watch the video and then try to create it again on your own if possible. And for anybody who did complete the program, let me know. I want to hear how you guys did. If you guys passed it, that's awesome. Let us know if you have any issues. Write about it in the discussion settings of the video, and we can move on to the next section after that. But before we can, and then we're going to talk about numbers and math.